Good afternoon. I'm Tips Mahoy, and this is ArthIntel Midday Edition. Coming up, Iran resumes missile attacks as U.S. and Saudis strike Tehran-backed militias in Iraq. Kyiv pushes back on Iran's victim claim after Ukrainian drones strike on Caspian Sea ship. Zelenskyy urges Trump to provide emergency shipment of patriot interceptors. That, plus a check of the weather across the country. Iran launched a barrage of missiles at American forces early Wednesday, as the U.S. and Saudi Arabia struck Iran-backed militias in Iraq. The Popular Mobilization Forces say at least 20 fighters were killed and 32 wounded in the strikes, while 2 militia officials tell the Associated Press 6 Iranian advisors were also killed. Jordan's military says it intercepted 5 Iranian missiles aimed at a key U.S. air base there, with no reported casualties. The renewed hostilities, which come after Saudi Arabia accused Iraqi militias of drone attacks on its oil facilities, sent Brent crude prices jumping more than 3% to $84.58 a barrel. Ukraine is pushing back against Iran after a weekend drone strike on an Iranian-flagged cargo ship in the Caspian Sea. Iranian state media says the vessel, the Anna, was hit while carrying steel cargo, and that a 23-year-old crewman, Nima Moradi, died of shrapnel wounds. But Ukraine's acting foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, says Iran has no right to claim victim status, calling Tehran a direct accomplice to Russia's war. Ukraine's ambassador to Israel added the ship was carrying drone and missile components bound for Russia, not civilian goods, and warned such targets could be struck again, while an Iranian official warned on X that Iran does not leave its actions unanswered. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he's urged President Trump to urgently send a package of Patriot interceptor missiles, telling Axios that Ukraine cannot wait the 1 to 5 years it could take to ramp up domestic production. Zelenskyy said Ukraine is seeking 300 Patriot interceptors before winter, and that during their July 28 White House meeting, Trump agreed to speed up licensing for Ukraine to produce the missiles itself. According to Zelenskyy, Trump promised to try to help, but warned that supplying the missiles would be difficult given U.S. demand tied to the conflict with Iran. Zelenskyy said Russia fires between 30 and 40 ballistic missiles in each large-scale strike, with 3 to 5 such attacks a month, and added that Ukraine is willing to share military technology and expertise in exchange for the interceptors. ArthIntel Headline News is brought to you in part by Toolbox Development, AI web development and marketing. Learn more at toolboxdevelopment.net. We'll be right back. Senator Rand Paul says his committee will vote next week on holding Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress. Paul says the move comes after Fauci repeatedly invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to answer questions at a Wednesday hearing, despite having received a blanket pardon from President Biden. Republicans, including Paul, argue Fauci has no legal exposure and no reason to avoid testifying as long as he tells the truth, with Paul also raising Fauci's staff's handling of records. Fauci, for his part, says the hearing was designed to get him to say something Paul could use against him, and that his attorneys advised against testifying. If the committee approves the contempt resolution, it would still need to go before the full Senate, where Democrats could block it with a filibuster. Joint Base Charleston is being renamed in honor of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. In a letter dated July 28, Air Force Secretary Troy Mink said Graham's advocacy was, quote, instrumental in modernizing our military infrastructure and enhancing aviation security at the base. Graham, who died July 11 at age 71, served in the U.S. Air Force and South Carolina Air National Guard before retiring as a colonel in 2015. The renaming was announced the same day as a congressional tribute ceremony for Graham at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, ahead of his funeral service at Washington National Cathedral. Dr. Anthony Fauci repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment right on Wednesday, declining to answer more than 100 questions during a combative, roughly 3-hour Senate hearing led by Republican Sen. Rand Paul. Paul, who subpoenaed Fauci and has long pushed for his prosecution, accused him of lying in earlier testimony about the pandemic's origins, an accusation Fauci has forcefully denied. Fauci said he was following his attorney's advice in staying silent, calling the hearing an attempt by Paul to get him to say something that could vindicate Paul's calls for him to end up behind bars. Paul announced the committee will vote next week on whether to hold Fauci in contempt, though he did not specify what charge he'd pursue. Dr. Anthony Fauci appeared under subpoena Wednesday before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, chaired by Senator Rand Paul, but invoked his Fifth Amendment right and refused to testify. When Fauci's attorney attempted to speak after Paul's questioning ended, Paul ruled him out of order and had him removed from the hearing room, prompting applause. Senator Richard Blumenthal then objected, saying the treatment of Fauci was part of what he called a continuing vendetta. Paul responded by arguing that a witness cannot plead the Fifth Amendment while allowing their attorney to testify on their behalf, saying the attorney was out of order and his ejection was appropriate. ArthIntel Headline News is brought to you in part by Toolbox Development, AI web development and marketing. Learn more at toolboxdevelopment.net. We'll be right back. Lawyers for former FBI Director James Comey are asking a federal judge in North Carolina to dismiss his indictment over an 8647 Instagram post, arguing it amounts to vindictive and selective prosecution. According to the filing, the Secret Service closely coordinated with the Justice Department and directly briefed President Trump aboard Air Force One about the post, and on the same day conducted what Comey's team calls illegal electronic surveillance of him. The agency adopted a new policy treating 8647 as a coded threat against the president. A Justice Department spokesperson responded that a North Carolina grand jury indicted Comey, and he'll have his day in court like any other defendant. This comes after a federal judge in Virginia last year dismissed a separate indictment against Comey, ruling that the prosecutor who obtained it, former Trump personal lawyer Lindsey Graham, had been unlawfully appointed. ArthIntel Headline News is brought to you in part by Toolbox Development, AI web development and marketing. Learn more at toolboxdevelopment.net. We'll be right back. Washington Commanders training camp is underway in Ashburn, Virginia, and Coach Dan Quinn opened with a clear message on competition, starting the first full-team drill with red zone and two-point play work. Quarterback Jaden Daniels connected on a couple of sharp throws to receiver Treylon Burks, but was nearly picked off by corner Mike Sainristil, showing both promise and rust early on. The emphasis comes after a season in which Washington's offense ranked 4th in red zone success, but its defense ranked 31st. On the roster front, team sources say interest in free agent receiver Brandon Ayuk has cooled amid his social media activity, while general manager Adam Peters says the team weighs off-field factors but relies mainly on tape and locker room feedback. Free agent Stefon Diggs, who caught 85 passes for 1,013 yards last season with New England, remains a name to watch. 32 years after Babson College hosted Diego Maradona and Argentina's national team ahead of the 1994 World Cup, college athletic departments are once again capitalizing on soccer's biggest stage. This summer, 13 universities hosted national team base camps, with 12 more schools seeking consideration as FIFA-approved training sites. Texas A&M and Auburn packed their football stadiums with over 88,000 fans each for pre-World Cup friendlies, and officials at both schools project net revenues between $1.5 million and $1.8 million. A viral moment between Lionel Messi and Texas A&M quarterback Marcel Reed also went viral, racking up 422,000 likes on the football program's Instagram account. ArthIntel Headline News is brought to you in part by Toolbox Development, AI web development and marketing. Learn more at toolboxdevelopment.net. We'll be right back. And finally, here's a look at temperatures across the country right now. It's hottest in Phoenix at 102 degrees, while Seattle is the coolest spot on the board this afternoon at 65. That's ArthIntel Midday Edition for now, 10 stories, coast to coast. I'm Tips Mahoy for ArthIntel, signal over noise. If you found this valuable, please like and subscribe, enable notifications for daily updates, and read the complete coverage at arthintel.com.